If you've been keeping up with recent Linux news, you might have seen an article or two about the change of the default web browser within the Manjaro Linux distro, the Cinnamon Desktop Environment Edition in particular, a couple of months ago. Instead of that specific distro shipping with everyone's favourite web browser, being Firefox, it now comes shipped with the web browser Vivaldi. Now, Vivaldi is a chromium-based web browser that was created as a result of the My Opera site being shut down by Opera Software in 2014. My Opera was kind of a forum/social media site, and as an answer to it being shut down, Vivaldi Community was launched to fill the void. And as time went on, Vivaldi Technologies was created, which then led to the first publicly available release of the Vivaldi web browser to compete with the then Opera browser, which seems to be known for all of the wrong reasons. Now, if we look on the YouTube search results for this web browser, you can see that there is a little bit of a division in opinion here. And this division is based around the fact that the Vivaldi web browser is, in fact, contrary to what some people may believe, proprietary software. Vivaldi is indeed based on the open source Chromium web browser, however, Vivaldi Technologies has deemed it necessary to put in their own bits of open source and closed source pieces of software. So, what does this mean? Well, Vivaldi is freeware, and that technically means that individual people cannot verify if the codebase does what we are told it does by the company. And in this case, the company has stated many times on its website that they do not collect data, nor do they ever want to or would even have a use for. Now, that may be the case. However, with some of the codebase being closed source, it is impossible to unbiasedly confirm it. I just wanted to explain this to you before we take a look at the web browser, just so you know what to expect and what not to expect. Manjaro Cinnamon now comes with Vivaldi, as its default web browser, so let's have a look. Just comes down here on the panel at the bottom. Going to click on that, and it gives us this little window here, so let's just full screen this. Sorry for the slowness of this virtual box. I seem to have I haven't messed around with it too much, so some of the settings may be a bit off, but it should be alright for this. So, when you first start up Vivaldi, you will be greeted with this screen stating how much Vivaldi do you want. So, how much do you want? Do you want the Essentials bundle, the Classic bundle, or the Fully Loaded bundle? Where the Essentials one doesn't track you, gives you an ad and track blocker, and translations. I'm assuming that's just translating web pages. And then the Classic one has those and a panel, status bar, and fast forward/rewind feature. And then we have the choice for the Fully Loaded one, which does all of those and includes mail, calendar, and feeds. Sounds pretty interesting. But I'm just going to leave it on Classic for now. I think that's a pretty good middle ground. Let's click on Continue. Alright, so we seem to get an option to import from applications or files. So I'm assuming that's going to be different bits that you have in other browsers, maybe extensions or certain settings, because if you didn't know, because Vivaldi is based on Chromium, you do have direct access to the Chrome Web Store, but you also have access to the Firefox Web Store as it uses some APIs. So you do have access to both the Firefox and Chrome Web Stores, which I think is pretty good. So you have that really wide range of extensions that you can pick from. Alright, so we are here in the tracker and ad blocking section. No blocking, block trackers and ads. I'm not too sure why no blocking is enabled by default, but I'm going to go with block trackers and ads. Alright, so we get to choose a theme. Now this is something that's very heavily emphasized with Vivaldi, is it is a very, very customizable web browser. As you saw on the website, you do get the option to kind of see how much you can customize this out of the box, and you can really do a number on this. You can change, it seems to be that you can change whatever you want with this web browser, so that is a positive, a lot of customization. So I'm just going to leave this with the use operating system theme. Click on continue. Where would you like your tab bar? Experiment with the options below to find a layout that fits. Alright, so it says it's in the top now, so if we click left, Oh, okay, so it's just a list of our tabs. Oh, that's nice. So it does give us the option to change that if you do so desire. I'm just going to leave mine on the top for now, but straight out of the box, this seems really quite nice. Things to try, 3 things to try right away. Want to get the most out of your new browser? Here are 3 popular features you can try right away. So notes, web panels, and tab tiling. So seems pretty interesting. What if we click on it? What does it do? Loads up a new tab. The notes panel. Okay, so this seems to just take us to the website. Which is pretty interesting. I'm just going to close that for now. So let's click on finish. And there we go. We are now in the Vivaldi web browser, basic as can be, on the Manjaro Linux distribution. Okay, so on this beginner little kind of home page, it kind of reminds me of the Firefox homepage with all the different little tabs and that, which is alright. I mean, it's better than having Pocket on the bottom. Our default search engine seems to be Bing, but I do know you can change that quite easily. You just click on it right there, you get the options of all these different ones: Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Kosher, Start Page, Wikipedia, and Google. So obviously we don't want to be using Google. That sounds pretty grim. So I think I'm going to select DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo seems to be the tried and true method, though I have heard very good things from Start Page. But that is an option for you right here. So we have a couple things here. We have Booking.com, The Guardian, Morrison's, Hotels.com, eBay, AliExpress, all these different types of things. I'm not too sure why there's so many, and I'm not too sure why things like Disney Plus are on here. It's there, I suppose. Most of these, if not all of these, I'm imagining people will just delete as soon as they have it installed, so not too sure about that. Maybe, I think these might be adjusted to where you are in the world, because I'm in the UK, I have Morrison's and The Guardian. I can't be imagining somebody who lives in Colorado is getting The Guardian and Morrison tabs installing this, so we get this down here, Vivaldi Game. Now, I'm not too sure how well this is going to work because I am in a virtual box and I haven't really tampered with it too much. So take this with a grain of salt. If it doesn't work or it works really badly, do know that it will most likely work flawlessly or a lot better on your system than on mine. Okay, seems to be pretty funky. Oh no. Oh yeah, we're getting artifacts. Oh, okay. Let's close that. Yeah, all right. I think I'll maybe come back to that whenever I change some options in this virtual machine. But I'm guessing it's just a little game in the web browser. So I mean, pretty cool. I can't imagine many people playing it more than once or twice, but I don't know, it's there. Okay, so let's just have a look in this little folder here. Alright, so we've just got some Manjaro specific stuff in here. I am assuming this probably won't be in it in any other version, just because this one has come pre-installed on Manjaro Linux Cinnamon Edition. Manjaro Linux Cinnamon Edition. Alright, so let's check out this page here that's come loaded up as well. What's new with Vivaldi? Okay, so this is just taking us to the Vivaldi website, just telling us about the new update. So, kind of like what Firefox does. If you've had that happen whenever you've updated Firefox, opens up a new tab. It's got to tell you all about Firefox VPN or Pocket or whatever other crap they're trying to push on you. So you got a bit more of that with this install. So nothing too unexpected, I'd say. But this tab seems quite interesting now. There's quite a few different options here, and I know you can really change it up, the UI. So let's have a little delve into it. We have a little cog down here, so I'm going to click on that. See what kind of options we get to have a look at. So there we go. We can change our home page here. So our home page is Vivaldi.com. We'll just click on Start Page there. So every time you start this up, it is going to check if it is your default browser. So if you're installing this on, I'm assuming if you're installing this on Windows 10 or Windows 11, it's going to make sure that Microsoft Edge isn't doing any dodgy stuff. So this will be your default web browser, no matter what Microsoft Edge is trying to get up to. So that's quite nice. Just got a couple other things down here, nothing too much. Let's go to Appearance, see what comes up here. Alright, so we can change the interface zoom. Window control position, which is... okay, so that's like the maximize, minimize, and close buttons. Alright, okay. And of course, anything you see with this, you could do with other browsers like Firefox and something like that, but the amount of effort you'd have to put into to change some of the options that you can just click some buttons in this and do is quite significant. A lot of emphasis on the user with this, on ease of use. Show when entering or exiting break mode. I'm not too sure what break mode is. Shall we have a look? We are excited to introduce the new break mode that will help you unplug from continuous work, improving work-life balance and focusing on activities outside the browser. So what break mode is basically, to put it in the words they have, take a break and pause the internet. So I'm assuming it just kind of disables your internet connection without disabling your internet connection kind of thing. So if you're getting really into it and you've been on it for hours, you can it just comes in and goes, oh, whoa, oh boy, you've had enough today, pause. Kind of like the Xbox One does, I think. If you play a game for too long, it kind of says, whoa, fella, you need to slow down. And then it lets you know you've been playing it for 35 hours straight and you really need to go see your parents. Okay, so that's an interesting addition, break mode. It's certainly a normie feature, I feel. And now, I think this goes without saying, but this web browser is a niche browser. It's not very mainstream. So a lot of these features, I feel, are trying to aim at bringing Vivaldi out of the dark and into the light. In fact, if we go back to the website and... where is it? It's somewhere. How many downloads the Vivaldi web browser has had. In fact, it might be on the Wikipedia page. But for a web browser that doesn't have, a significant portion of the user base that use web browsers, as of September 2021, Vivaldi has more than 2.3 million active users. Which is nothing to laugh about. 2.3 million active users is a lot. But comparing that to Google Chrome or even Firefox or Microsoft Edge, it's not too much. Now, from what I've been able to gather so far, Vivaldi seems like a much better version of the Opera web browser, and I think nowadays Opera is known for being an inherently bad for privacy web browser. Vivaldi want to kind of take Opera's former place in the world of web browsers. I know Opera's been a lot bigger in the past, so I think Vivaldi is trying to revive that old Opera dominance in the web browser space in a much better ways. But at the same time, the Vivaldi browser does also contain closed source code, so not an individual person cannot verify if the Vivaldi browser is doing what the developers are saying it's doing. So I think it's quite counterintuitive, really, because they're toting all about how Vivaldi is a privacy-respecting, one of the best web browsers out right now, but at the same time you have blob software on your web browser that no one can see the source code of. No one can see the full source code of the Vivaldi web browser other than the developers. And if you're trying to be a privacy-respecting web browser, and that's part of your main marketing scheme, you kind of have to be open source. You can't just say one thing but then not back that up with proof, if you know what I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying Vivaldi are being dodgy, because it seems like a pretty damn good web browser for so far, but that is, just keep it in mind, Alright, so I just clicked on this button here, this little window button on this left bar, and you do also get it seems to store your open tabs and your closed tabs. So if you accidentally close a tab or something, need to go back to it, you can, which I think is a really nice feature. That is pretty nice. So if you're one of those people that has loads of tabs and you close one and you go, oh crap, I didn't mean to close that, you can just go back in here and click on it and, ta-da. So let's go through these little icons then. We've got notes, so you can write some notes. history icon there, you got your downloads tab here, your bookmarks here. So by default, Vivaldi has Booking.com, AliExpress, Amazon and eBay as bookmarks. You can also choose these bookmarks from up here and history, as well as the notes icon there. It's quite nice. And this one here. Okay, so this is the translate feature that we briefly saw the option appear when we were just started this up. So this is pretty cool. So you get a kind of a Google Translate-esque thing built into the web browser. And very useful, I'm assuming, if you're the type of person to be reading up on foreign websites or you're in a forum and people are talking in another language, you can just copy and paste the text here. But down here, it's powered by Lingvanex and hosted by Vivaldi, so I don't see any mention of Google Translate, so I'm assuming it's not using it. And now you also get the option to auto-translate selected text, so I'm assuming if you highlight a text on the web browser or something, it will automatically translate that in here, which is, you know, that's excellent if that is indeed the case. Get this little option down here, which seems to load up a version of the help.vivaldi website in the browser on this little tab here, which is, this is a way different browser than what I thought it was going to be. I thought this browser was going to be just another, you know, chromium based cookie cutter web browser that you see nowadays, you know, with the same features and the same workflow that you know you're going to be able to complete on there. Whereas with this, there's loads more features, and I do know that was one of the also one of the other toting points of Vivaldi being a better browser than most others, in their words, of course, is because of the amount of features they have implemented in the Vivaldi web browser. It's just a shame they couldn't make it all open source, but, you know, you win some, you lose some, I suppose. So if you are going to be using this web browser on a day-to-day basis, I think you should just keep that in mind, is that, yes, there are a lot more features on here, and if you value those features, you also need to weigh into account that you don't really know for sure what Vivaldi are collecting on your usage data. You don't know if they're taking that data and selling it to third parties, you don't know if they're keeping that data for their own purposes, and you don't know if they're not doing any of that at all, and if they are true to their word and doing everything they say they are. So just something to keep in mind, but so far this is pretty nice. Now if we did select the fully featured one, the fully featured setup, I'm assuming we would get a few more settings here, but I'm not too sure, and I'm sure there's a way to add them. Okay, so there's just like little tabs on here where we can swap from which one to which. Accounts and services, mail, calendar. This is a very interesting way of doing this. It's here if you need it. I mean, there's a lot of features in this. We also get the option to load up Wikipedia in this little, and we also do get the option to add a web panel, which is interesting. Let's see what happens if we load up youtube.com. It automatically loads it out for us. Apparently, youtube.com has redirected us too many times, so apparently YouTube won't work. What if we add... why don't we add a Mongolian basket weaving for him? What about that? Let's load up Fortune. How's this going to render? This renders how you'd expect with this aspect ratio. But the option is there, and to remove it, you can just right-click it and remove web panel, which is pretty nice. In short, there are a lot of different features within this web browser. So if you're looking for a fully featured web browser that comes with basically everything you could ever think of, I'm thinking Vivaldi is probably a pretty good choice. But of course, if you do value your privacy as your number one, then maybe Vivaldi won't be for you, as I've mentioned a couple of times before, the source code is not fully open source. But yeah, this is just a quick little rundown on Vivaldi. I just wanted to tell you those few bits of information, how Vivaldi web browser is now the default web browser for Manjaro Linux Cinnamon edition, and how Vivaldi states that they are all for privacy protection and not selling your data, not collecting your data in the first place, but they aren't open source, so you're just going to have to go off their word with that. Alright, so on the subject of privacy, why don't we navigate to the settings tab? And I did see down here, of course, we have the possibility to change the appearance, the themes, the start page, tabs, panels, all the customization that is always been talked about with this web browser. But we also have down here privacy, so let's check out that. So apparently we get to use some Google services for phishing and malware protection, and DNS to help resolve navigation errors, and form autofill assist. Now, me personally, I don't really like using anything Google. I'd much rather do everything myself. Then I know if something goes wrong, it's me. If you're not massively tech savvy, or you're just wanting to change browsers, and I'm sure this is going to be alright if you don't really value your data. I don't really know how if Vivaldi can be as privacy respecting as they say they are, if they are using Google services. I mean, I know it's Chromium based, but the Chromium web browser itself is fully open source, whereas obviously they've put their own blobs on this. So I don't know about that. So you can disable the web store if you want, and if you're not going to be using the Google Web Store, you can just disable it. Do not track. Now, ask websites not to track me is disabled by default for some reason. We also have block ads on abusive sites. Now, it rejects advertisements on websites listed by Google as privacy offenders. So this will be blocking adverts that Google say are bad. It's not even asking every website you go on to not track or anything like that. It's only blocking adverts on abusive websites. Save browsing history every 3 months. I'm assuming after 3 months it'll delete it. Down here we have the default permissions. So motion sensors is allowed by default, and sound. Whereas notification, geolocation, and camera, microphone, Bluetooth devices, and MIDI devices are all ask by default, and pop-ups and idle detection are all blocked by default. So, and here we go down here. Alright, so with the tracker and ads blocking down here, because of our little, this does make a lot more sense. So we have the Google bit up here, which is on by default, which blocks ads on abusive sites. And down here, this is the user set settings. So we have no blocking, block trackers and ads. And we chose this at the beginning when we were setting up our web browser. So this is up to you if you want to block all trackers and ads. So up to the user there. Alright, that's alright. That's not too bad. And third-party cookies down here, with the classic setup that we went through. We have block in incognito mode only for third-party cookies. If you're trying to set this up so you're not getting any cookies, you're definitely going to want to have a look in privacy settings and all these settings really. But yeah, definitely make sure you block all if you do not want third-party cookies. Though if you do that, as it says here, some websites won't work. Like if you're logging into sites and hopping over different URLs and stuff, it may break depending on the cookies that are used. But if you're just browsing on YouTube, or if you're on some news web pages or some Mongolian basket weaving forums, and you may as well block all the cookies. But if you're really using your browser as a work machine, you're really using it, then and you want to use Vivaldi for that, then definitely maybe allow them, unless you want to cause yourself a bit of a headache. Yeah, they weren't kidding about the amount of features they had in this web browser. I mean, this web browser feels like its own operating system. There are loads of different features, and I'm sure I missed out on a ton of features, but you should really check this out. If you're wanting to look for a different web browser other than Firefox, and you're willing to not compromise your data, but you're willing to maybe protecting your data isn't your number one for a web browser, and you're not too bothered as long as you get the features that you want, then yeah, check out Vivaldi. It seems feature rich. So yeah, I hope you do check this out, even if you don't end up using it day to day. Have a look at it, check it out, install it. It's not that big. I think it's around 40 megabytes on Linux. I think it's around 60 to 70 on Mac OS, and even smaller on Windows. I think their full installs like 30 megabytes. So yeah, definitely check it out if you're interested. I mean, first impressions, this looks very, very feature rich, as I've said. So Yeah, definitely give it a go. You know, if you do value privacy, I would recommend using something like a hardened Firefox install or LibreWolf, something like that. But yeah, if you're really looking for an extensive list of features, check out Vivaldi. It doesn't seem too bad. Better than Opera anyway. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little quick surface level look on this web browser. Definitely recommend you check it out. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day.